All right, so welcome everybody to the September 2023 Collaboration Cafe webinar, sponsored by the Midwest Big Data Innovation Hub with support from the National Science Foundation. I'm John MacMullen. I'm the Executive Director of the MBDH, and today we'll be exploring the first of two programs from NSF that are focused on cyberinfrastructure workforce development. And here to help us understand the goals that NSF has for these programs, I'm very happy to welcome today a program director with responsibility for the CyberTraining program. That's Dr. Ashok Srinivasan. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you taking the time with us today.
It is my pleasure.
I also do see Tom Gobranson on the call as well, who's a program director at NSF focused on the Skype program, which we'll look at in October. And so thank you for joining as well. And I do expect that we'll have at least one prior awardee of the CyberTraining program joining today, and we'll hopefully have a chance to talk with them about how that process worked for them during proposal and the deployment of that project. I'll mention that the slides for today's session will be available on our website shortly after the webinar today. And the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. We have a playlist for this monthly webinar series, and so you'll be able to find that in that playlist. For those who are new today on the call or who are watching this recording in the future, I'll just quickly mention that we are part of a national network of 4 regional data innovation hubs that are sponsored by NSF. We have been around for several years now, focused on building communities and collaborations around data science, both within our individual regions and then nationally with larger scale activities as well. So if you're watching this from outside our 12-state region in the Midwest, feel free to reach out to the hub in your area and get engaged with the work that they do. Here in the Midwest, we have several priority theme areas that we focus on in terms of different disciplines and topics, but we also have a couple of cross-cutting themes, and that is really where we are situated today in terms of workforce development and cyber infrastructure. We have done several webinars previously in this series around CI and in particular on training and workforce development. So if you have interest in some of those programs or that discussion, you can find all of those on our website and our playlist as well on YouTube. This is actually our, I remembered this today, this is our 2-year anniversary for this webinar series. So really appreciate the community's interest in having this webinar and all the guests that we've had up to this point. We're really appreciative of folks taking the time to talk from the agency perspectives and from the perspectives of awardees and how those processes have worked for them. So we're looking forward to having more folks in the future through the end of our award period. I do want to mention that as a part of the work that we do around this series, one set of resources that we make available that are curated is a collection of prior awards made within our 12-state region. And so that includes the CI related awards that we'll be talking about, but also those for each of the topics each month. And so you can find those through our website, and that'll be linked here from the slides as well. That is, I think, a really valuable resource for people who are developing their own proposals. They can see what has been funded previously and where there may be gaps for new work to be done. So as I said at the top, this is the first of 2 webinars looking at CI workforce development. So today we're focused on CyberTraining, and then in October on the Skype program. And so one way to think about these programs, there's a lot of similarities, a lot of differences between them, but one way to think about it is that for CyberTraining, we're focused on the larger set of end users of CI, what NSF calls the scientific research workforce. So this includes faculty, students, researchers, postdocs. And in particular, we'll talk today that CyberTraining includes curriculums for undergrads and grad level students. Compared with that, the Skype program is really more focused on research CI professionals, so people who work with CI as a part of their jobs, maybe in a high-performance computing center or research computing facility at an institution. And so a little bit different scope, but still within a similar universe that we're looking at here. So I think at this point, I will stop and turn it over to our guest, and then we'll come back and talk in more detail about the solicitation at that point. So Ashok, I'll stop here and let you share your slides at this point.
So, can you see my slide?
Yes, it looks perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks for the introduction, John. So this is, I'll be talking about the cyber training program. I run it jointly with my colleagues, Jen Lee and Sharmista Bagchi Sen. The next solicitation deadline is 18th January 2024, and I have the solicitation link at the bottom. John also has it on his slide. Okay. So what are the webinar goals? Okay, so one is to orient potential proposers so that, for example, I'll give the motivation for the program, because if you know the why are we running the program, you're more likely to come up with a proposal that aligns with our goals. Okay? Then I'll summarize cyber training program and the review criteria, and hopefully this will actually help you write proposals that align with the program goals. And of course, I'll be happy to answer questions that you may have. So the motivation for the program is that advanced cyber infrastructure. So cyber infrastructure includes, for example, software, data repositories, services like cloud computing and all that is made available to the community. So all that is cyber infrastructure. And so advanced cyber infrastructure is such infrastructure that is used for research. So advanced cyber infrastructure has a transformative impact on a variety of science domains, right? And the research workforce will benefit from being able to use it for their own discipline-specific purposes. Okay, so they need appropriate training and curricular material so that they can actually train their researchers in using advanced CI for research. Okay. There's also need for fostering broader adoption of CI resources, tools, and methods by diverse research communities, where the diverse communities are specified in diverse manners. It's up to you. Okay, so for example, it could be based on geographic considerations, it could be based on field of study or so on. But generally, if a certain community that you identify could potentially use CI for research but has not adopted it sufficiently, then proposing training for that is appropriate. Okay, so there are a few things that I've actually bold-faced. Okay, so it has to deal, the proposal has to deal with CI, right? It's not just general training. It has to deal with CI for research, right? And then it has to deal with using such CI for research purposes. Okay, so I have highlighted research also. It's not general workforce training. Okay, and then we are increasingly emphasizing the broadening the adoption of CI by broad and diverse communities. Okay, so broadening participation in computing is an important theme that we are looking at. So given that, I want to kind of clarify a bit on what John said. In the cyber training program, we actually do look at three communities. So the first community is the CI contributors, right? Like people who develop software or data repositories and so on. Okay, so those are one group that we are actually interested in training. Okay, the other is CI professionals, people who actually support such research, use of such CI, right, for research purpose. We are interested in training them for that also. Okay, and then the CI users, these are domain scientists who will use the CI. Okay, so it is not only the end users. Okay, the end user is only 1/3 of our stakeholders. Okay, so we are interested in all three categories of people, stakeholders, and providing training for all three of them, or any three of them, is relevant to the cyber training program. So what I will do is, I just want to give an idealized view of the different related programs, so you can distinguish them and see if your aim suits one of them better than the others. Okay, so before I come to cyber training, let me talk about all the other programs. You see why cyber training is different from them. Okay, so in the CSSA program, what will you do? You will develop a software and data repository typically. Okay, so that is typically what you would do as a main theme. You may actually, as an incidental thing, provide training on using that, but your main focus would be on developing a software. So the output would be sustained and community-supported CI, okay, cyber infrastructure. Okay, so it's going to be on CI development. We have an OAC core program. The OAC core program, you'll do research. Okay, what kind of research? Research that will enable future CI. Okay, so you're going to be doing research. Okay, and what will be the output? It'll be some techniques, for example, that will enable CI, and perhaps a CI prototype also. Okay, in the Skype program, which Tom will talk much more about that later. But just to distinguish between the Skype and cyber training, you will actually provide support for research. Okay, and you will foster CIP careers. That is what your project is going to focus on. Okay, and what will be the output? You'll provide research support in CI and develop CI professional career paths. Okay, but if you're providing training, right, the training could be training for CI professionals, right? That would actually fit in the cyber training program. Okay, because we are the training program. Okay. The others, you may have training as incidental to them, but that's not the primary activity. The primary activity, if it's training, then it probably fits in the cyber training program. Okay. What will be the output? It will be a scalable and sustainable training program. Okay. So your goal is to increase the research workforce to leverage cyber infrastructure. This is a gap that you're going to try to fill. You believe that there's some community that is not adequately served. So you're saying I'm going to increase adoption by that community. Okay, or you may develop curricular material and so on. Okay, so this is the main focus of the cyber training program. The cyber training program has to provide training to whom? It could be any of the three communities that I talked about. Okay, and what is it going to do? It is going to be for a research workforce that leverages CI. Okay, because you can do a research workforce training that does not leverage CI. You can do leveraging CI, but for a general workforce, right? It should have both aspects. It has to address the research workforce, and you have to leverage CI. Okay, and what you should do? What should you do? You should provide training. Okay, and you'll also develop a scalable and sustainable program. Okay, so that is what the cyber training program is about. So our long-term vision is a computational and data-driven science for all scientists and engineers. Okay, so you want to prepare, nurture, and grow a scientific research workforce, which includes students, instructors, and research CI professionals. Okay, so all these, you may provide training for students, it could be for faculty, right? Or it could also be especially early career faculty, or it could be for CI professionals who deal with supporting research. Okay, so all these we are kind of interested in nurturing and growing. Okay, so what specifically what the solicitation does is it wants to broaden adoption of CI tools, methods, and resources. Okay, and it also wants to integrate such material into the undergraduate and graduate curricula. Okay, so you may do two things, or one of two things, or maybe even both. Okay, you may say there's inadequate curricular material, I'm going to create new material and all that. And of course, you have to use it for training, right? Or you may use even existing resources, but broader adoption by certain communities that are currently not adequately served by. Okay, and we are increasingly emphasizing broadening CI access and adoption by varied science domains. Okay, not just science, but by varied communities. It could be by the scientific domain, it could be based on underrepresented groups, it could be by type of institution, for example, undergraduate institutions and so on, right? There are a variety of ways in which you could broaden the adoption. Okay. So next, I will talk about the different domains, science domains that are supported. Okay, so one is the computer science directorate, of course, right? We also have a couple of divisions from engineering. From the geosciences, we have all divisions that participate. From the education directorate, we have DGE that participates. In the math and physical sciences, we have astronomy, chemistry, materials, and physics that participate. And we have social and behavioral sciences, we have SES that participates. Okay, so we have a wide variety of science domains that actually participate along with us. So here are different project classes. So you have pilot projects that are exploratory projects that are about 300K for 2 years. And then you have 2 types of implementation projects. Okay. So you have small and large. Small is 500K over 4 years, and medium is 1 million over 4 years. Okay. So what are here next to the review criteria. So if it's a pilot project, like any project, you have to identify what gap you're filling, right? Here, the gap is in research workforce. So you have to identify what is the gap in research workforce that you're filling, right? The important thing is that you have to make sure you address at least one of A or B in number 2, okay? So are you broadening the use of CI resources, okay? Or are you providing skills training, okay? That is going to be included in curricular material, okay? So you would actually have at least one of those. So the bigger projects typically have both of those. And increasingly what we expect is that you'll coordinate with Access. Access has a knowledge base. We are hoping that you will actually do some coordination with them to provide your materials over there. And we have a little bit more description of that in solicitation about how you can contribute to Access. Okay. Then the small and medium implementation proposals will also have scalability and sustainability. We definitely don't want it to be restricted to your university. Okay, so how are you going to expand it much beyond your university, right? So that is one thing. Sustainability, how are you going to ensure it you can continue it beyond the time frame of your project, right? Then we look at the recruitment and evaluation strategies. Okay, how are you recruiting the trainees? Okay, you want to broaden participation, right? So that is important. You should have an evaluation plan and an independent evaluator. Okay, then how do you deliver collective impact? Okay, so you want to deliver impact to a larger community, right? So how do you actually how are you going to actually deliver that? And for that, you will actually need to get feedback from the community and engagement with them, right? Okay. And then fostering a suitable community. That is, it's not just addressing a community that exists, but how we expand it and make it grow, right? And so that the community contributes for the future development of the training and curricula, right? So the medium proposals need to have the 6th one also. The small should have all the others at least. Okay, so these are some of the review criteria that we are anticipating. The pilot project, because pilot, it may not be as ambitious in terms of scalability and all that. It'll be more like exploratory work. It could be at your university or a couple of universities. From the lessons learned, hopefully you would be able to write a subsequent small or medium proposal. Okay. So the programmatic areas of interest, each division has its areas that it emphasizes. You know, a common theme is basically you want to do research, you want to support research and provide training for such research, okay, using CI. That is a common theme. So you're welcome to ask questions. Before we do that, I thought I will just share some common questions that people often have. So is consultation with a program officer required? It is not required, but it is strongly encouraged. Okay, And if you are working on application to some science domain, you should ideally talk to the program director in the science domain also, not only the OAC person. So can your proposal primarily train people for jobs in the industry? That could be incidental, but the main goal of this proposal is on scientific research workforce development, okay, and using advanced cyber infrastructure for scientific research. Okay, so it is basically a research workforce development program, not a general workforce development program. Okay, when people see cyber, they think it should be cyber security, but cyber security is are important if it's relevant to cyber infrastructure in the scientific research workflow. Okay, not a general cyber security. And if we go well beyond security, a lot of our proposals are not security. We also have a lot of security-related proposals, but those should be relevant to the use of CI in scientific research workflow. And this relevance will vary depending on whether you're dealing with grads, undergrads, CI professionals across disciplines, and so on. So should you have a small to get a medium? Should you have a pilot to get a small? No. You can apply right away for any of the categories that you want to, project classes. Then this is basically, a contact information. Again, basically it's just first slide again, in case you want to know our contact information or know where the solicitation is. Okay, so that's about it from my end. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to ask.
Great. Thanks so much, Ashok, for that information. And folks who are on the call live, feel free to put questions in the chat at any point. Be happy to address those along the way. So thank you. That was very informative. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and we'll just hit a couple of other details that people may be interested in. All right, so I think that you talked through the majority of the points here. As you said, the next due date is in January, and so keeping in mind the holidays at the end of the year and your sponsored program office deadlines, that's going to come up maybe faster than you might think, and so having something underway very soon, I think, is really important. And Ashok talked through the different communities of interest here, so we won't go through that, but all of these slides, as I said, will be available to you after the call today for reference. I encourage you to read the solicitation, and that is the primary document you should be focused on. But we'll try to supplement that with some questions here as well. I think I'm going to skip this since you covered it quite well. I'll just note that, in terms of the goals and the review criteria, NSF does a great job in the solicitations about providing a lot of information, defining the terms that they're talking about, putting things in bold that are really important for you to be aware of. So again, it's really important for you to read that solicitation thoroughly and get an understanding exactly what is being asked that you provide in the proposal. Ashok, I see you have your hand up. Go right ahead.
Yeah, the previous slide had the old solicitation number. The slide I presented has the correct current solicitation number.
Great, thanks for clarifying that. Okay, let's talk a little bit for those who may be familiar with NSF proposals, but haven't proposed into this program before. In the solicitation, they give you a really nice breakdown of which elements you need to include, which documents, and so the first part of the slide here is going to look pretty similar to other proposals that you may be familiar with. You have a one-page summary that you'll produce along with the main project description, which has a 15-page limit. But within the solicitation, they give you some very specific guidance about what needs to be present in that project description. And so, again, make sure you check out the definitions for what those elements include. You know, that's things like which goal you're targeting of those that Ashok mentioned, how you're integrating particular skills into the curriculum that you may be developing, or how you're broadening adoption of a particular CI collection, how you're evaluating your success with your project, how are you recruiting people to participate, and then how are you assessing how that works for them in the longer term. So lots of those and many others that you should check out there. But also keep in mind that this program has an annual PI meeting, like many NSF programs. And so part of your budget should include the cost for the PI and maybe co-PI to participate in that meeting. We'll come back to other budget items in a moment here, but moving on to supplementary documents, there's a real nice description about which of these are important based upon your particular concept that you're proposing. And so everybody needs to have a management and coordination plan, talking about how this project will be run. And if you have CI professionals involved, you need to have a mentoring plan or a professional development plan for those audience or members of the community. If you're using things like high performance computing or cloud resources, you need to have some documentation of how that is involved in this work. And we'll talk a little bit more about the cloud element in a moment. But then you probably will have collaborators for your proposal. And so having letters of collaboration from those organizations is important and does use the standard one-sentence template from NSF. So this is not a narrative letter talking about how they're going to support your project. This is the standard form letter that you would use. So again, make sure you read the solicitation and be clear about specifically what you need to include in your proposal. Again, very good guidance in there about that. Let's see if I want to talk about any of these. As Ashok said, you know, PIs are strongly encouraged to contact NSF with the concept that you're interested in proposing, both in the OAC side, but also the relevant directorate and division as well. And so definitely encourage, if you haven't reached out to NSF program directors previously, that is part of their role. They are welcoming you to get in contact with them and talk about your concept. So for early career folks, that is a typical thing that you will do, and so don't feel that is something that's going out of the ordinary for them to do. That is part of a lot of these solicitations. Each of the implementation projects, so Ashok mentioned the small and medium size implementation projects, each of those need to have a external board of advisors. And so as you're thinking about your collaborators and partners, that's an important piece of that. This is so that your project is representing the wider stakeholder community that you're helping to create here. Likewise, for evaluation, there looks to be a requirement for an independent evaluator as well. And so, again, even just in terms of timing, making sure that you are lining up an evaluator and thinking about your external advisors is important given the time frame. Let's come back to the cloud computing piece for a minute, because NSF has mechanisms for including cloud resources in a number of programs, and this is one of them. But what you're allocating in your budget for those resources does come off of the maximum budget for the project class that you're talking about. And so whatever you're committing to for those resources, you have to adjust the rest of your budget to account for that. One thing that is a little different about this program is that, Ashok, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you are not including the cloud computing budget within the main budget. This is only in the supplement. Is that correct?
Okay, technically, yes. However, when you look at the budget limit, it needs to include, the limit applies to some of both. Okay. But as you mentioned, the cloud computing part won't go into the main budget. It will actually go as a separate thing.
So you definitely have to account for that number, but you won't have a line item in your main budget for that. Ashok, I did want to check with you. The last webinar for CyberTraining was last December, and so that is available for folks to look at on the NSF website. We have a link here from the slides, but I think there were some minor changes to the solicitation, and so I just wondered if there were plans to have another webinar this fall before the next due date.
So basically, we cannot say anything that is not public. Okay. But generally, you'll see the trend, annual trends that generally we have often been having webinars each year. So that's a trend I can share, but I can't say exactly. But you can infer what is going to happen. Yeah.
So what I take away from that is that we should check back on the CyberTraining website and see if there is one upcoming, especially if we're interested in proposing.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think that we'll get into the
and I probably need to leave at this point, John. So
okay,
yeah. So you're all welcome to email me if you have any questions.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much again for being here. We really appreciate your insights, and we'll look forward to speaking with you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. All right. So, as I said, I think that we won't go through the details of these criteria unless folks on the call would like to explore those. But I think Ashok had a good breakdown showing which of these apply to which of the project classes and types. And so that was very helpful. And, again, within the solicitation, you'll be able to see a lot more detail from NSF about what exactly they're looking for in your proposal. So again, this is very helpful, right? You're not writing your proposal in the dark. You have a lot of guidance about what specifically they want to see from a successful proposal, and that's very helpful as you start to develop that. Okay, so I think that we will, before we get into the discussion part of today, I just wanted to mention that today was the first part of our two-part series on CI workforce development. So definitely come back in October if you're interested in this topic, and we'll have Tom Gilbranson from NSF to talk about the Skype program that was mentioned today. And if you are interested in workforce development more broadly for CI and for research computing, in November, we will be focused on an NIH program looking at data management around large scale, particularly neuroscience, but other kinds of data as well. So if you have folks in your network who are interested in data management in biomedical research, that would be a great one to share with them. And also, we currently at the Hub have a program for proposals that is open, that is focused on building community in different areas of interest to us, and cyber infrastructure is certainly one of those, in addition to our other disciplinary theme areas. And so if you have a project that you think is really timely but may not be at the scale where you're ready to do a cyber training or Skype proposal, this could be a way that you get a chance to do some preliminary work, initiate that activity, start to build that community through our funding mechanism. And so we'd be happy to talk with anybody who is interested in exploring that. There's lots of information on our website about that, and the program is open for proposals now. So happy to talk more about that on this call if you would like. But at this point, I want to open it up to just general discussion. We have a small group on the call here at this point, and so I think that I will probably stop the recording here and just have an informal discussion about these questions or anything else that folks would like to address today. So for those of you watching the recording, we hope that you come back for the October meeting. And feel free to reach out to us at any point with ideas for future sessions or requests to get connected with folks in the Midwest around data science and CI. So thanks very much for watching, and we will open it up here to general discussion.